We are at 421 North Main Street, a recently renovated house that pretty much anybody around here has been going by for a long period of time, hoping that somebody would fall in love with it. Well, actually, Javier Blanco and his wife, Clarabee, and a relative, Ino Gomez, had recently, in the last few years, fixed up a number of other houses in town, but mostly there were houses that had been built in the 40s, 60s, or even the 80s, but just needed some modernization and sprucing up. This house, of course, was a lot older and in need of a lot more love, and they fell in love with it. Now, obviously, it was for a investment opportunity as well, because there's a lot next door that they subdivided, but it's a labor of love. The house sits on North Main Street that is one of the oldest trails in the state of New Jersey. It was a Minisink trail for the Minisink Indians, and they traveled this trail for centuries. As would have it with a lot of the old Indian trails, when the white man came and settled, they used the trails and converted them into roads for horses, carriages, etc. So after centuries of it being used, and by the Minisink Indians as a Minisink trail, the European settlers named it the Duke of York Trail. So we, of course, know part of York roads all over the place, but it was first the Duke of York Road. So it's a very, very historic road that this house sits on. The house itself was built in the 1870s on the corner of the road that went to Wyckoff's Mills. That road is called Wyckoff's Mills Road, and I always tell people or suggest you close your eyes and you pretend the bypass isn't there and you pretend the New Jersey Turnpike's not there. This road meandered around old trees and a little swampy ground, etc. So it wasn't a straight shot to go 1.6, 1.7 miles to Wyckoff's Mills. Everybody's familiar with Hightstown was built around a mill that was built at the Rocky Brook, and Ettra, was Milford, had a mill there, but a lot have forgotten that there was a big, very successful mill out this road 1.7 miles away at Wyckoff's Mills. It is where you would go down Probasco Road at the furthest northwest corner of Twin Rivers, and there's a bridge that goes over the Millstone River, and that is where Wyckoff's Mills was. This has a mixture of architecture. We don't know exactly the year that it was built, but I said 1871 because there was an article in the Hightstown Gazette that talks about, sort of like a social note, and the Hunt's new house on North Main Street is being painted. Well, new relatives, so it could have been 1870, could have been 1872, but we'll use 1871. Its architectural style is called Victorian by people, but really it's more Second Empire and Eastlake style. Mansard roof, which is the Eastlake style, and the Second Empire, which is the boxy with the overhangs and the box gutters and the large windows. It was built by Elston Hunt. Most people call this the Wyckoff House, even though it's really the Hunt House, since Hunt is the one who built the house. And he was a mayor of Hightstown. Hunt actually ran on the party that was called the No License Party. No license meaning they didn't want to grant any liquor licenses to any of the taverns in town. This was a constant battle during that latter part of the 19th century, Civil War, pre-Civil War through the end of the century, as regards to how many inns, how many were going to be allowed to serve liquor, etc., because most of it, the licensing was done locally. So he ran as a member of the No License Party, which was a 100% temperance anti-alcohol policy. So Wyckoff's Mills was almost the dividing line at one point between the borough and the township, as the house across the street, the Applegate's house, was in the township when this house remained in the borough. This house sat on a much larger parcel from this property all the way over to William Street was a large piece that was owned by a family named Poland, which was subdivided off into the many lots you see from here towards Hightstown. This whole area of the Hightstown was generally referred to by locals as Canada. Well, I'd heard that as a kid, and I always thought it was because this is the north side of town, Canada, but it actually wasn't. Most of the land from the Rocky Brook all the way here and north was owned by a fellow named Reed, R-E-E-D, and of course a lot of us have heard of the Reed House, and there's a Reed Street, but he raised ponies that were called Canadian ponies. So since he had all these ponies running around that were Canada ponies, it was referred to as Canada. And the Historical Society is very excited with what Javier has been able to do with the house, and we look forward to a loving owner sometime near in the future.